Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of the Jake's Take with Jacob Elyachar Podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Elyachar, the chief content producer and writer of jakesick.com, a pop culture entertainment news website. If you're watching this on YouTube, please give us a thumbs up and please subscribe to my channel. If you're listening to our audio, please give us a 5-star rating. Please subscribe. I'm thrilled to welcome, it's Jacob Squared. He is the host of the Challenge Historian Podcast. He's also the keeper of the MTV long-time running competition records book. So please let me welcome Jacob, the Challenge Historian, to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I feel so at home. I'm like, it's Jake's Take. So like, you know, some people in my life call me Jake, others call me Jacob. I feel right at home. Like you're just going to get double dosage of Jake's Takes today on the podcast. So thanks for having me. I'm really looking forward to it.
All righty. Thank you so much. I got to give you credit where credit's due first, because I got turned on to your platform because of watching the recap episodes, because I want to admit this. A lot of people know this, and I admit this publicly. Davon and Paulie, when they came on for the final reckoning, they brought me into the challenge. Mm-hmm. So it's their fault that I'm here. So you give a but however, for people like me, Jacob does a fabulous job with all the recaps, and we'll get to some of my favorite recaps in a moment. So I want to give you thank you.
Yes, thank you for that. I think, there's a lot of us out here now covering the challenge on podcasts or writing about it and everything. And, a lot of us have been around for a handful of years now, but as a long time, OG challenge fan, when I started my show, the first thing I really wanted to do was just hey, none of this existed for the first 25 plus seasons of this show. And so I try my best any extra time I have that isn't just doing recaps of each current episode is going back and giving love to the earliest seasons, the OG seasons, because there wasn't a bunch of podcasts and people writing about those ones back then. And they're still my favorite to talk about and chat about with different challenge fans. And, so I try to give as much love as I can to the oldest of the seasons and the best seasons, but it's not all just the old ones. Some of the best ones are in the 20s, even in the 30s. Some people will disagree with that, but there's good ones everywhere you look.
I totally agree. So what drew you to the challenge?
So pretty much like most, I think I was just the right age to be super into to be in the original funnel right into the challenge. I was a big Real World fan. I watched the last season or two of the Road Rules live, but I was just the right age to I think for everyone, MTV fans, millennial MTV fans kind of have their own, if you like the Real World, there was 3 or 4 seasons that were your seasons when you were the right age to see yourself in the cast members or maybe have a crush on one of the cast members or whatever. And for me, that was Austin, Key West, Denver was the 3-season run where I was 15, 16 years old. So they were all, 4 or 5 years older than me. I could look at them and be like, I want to be friends with Wes and Danny or Johnny and Tyler. I have a crush on Johanna or Svetlana or Jen or whatever, and was super into the Real World, which then took me into I can watch these people more. So I started watching the challenge live on around season 12, 13, fresh meet the duel, as the first Austin cast members came in. And then I, of course, went back and immediately found any way I could to watch the older seasons, and have now watched the first 10 seasons of the show, probably each 6 or 7 times each, which is maybe not the best use of my time, but it's really enjoyable. And so I was, an athlete at that time in high school and stuff. I liked reality TV. I liked all these cast members, and I just thought the challenge was the coolest combination. I was an OG Survivor fan, as a kid, was there season 1 of Survivor, 10 years old, loved it. But I thought the challenge was just the coolest mix of, this is a reality show that's about the drama in the entertainment, but it's also maybe they kept making the competition side really, really cool. I always was just dying to do it. I enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed the reoccurring characters, and fell in love at a young age and never stopped. It was the one show I didn't fall out of love with, Survivor and some others. I watched, and then I kind of it went away. And a lot of folks in the pandemic years, I was you know what I should do? I missed 20 seasons of Survivor. I could go watch those, but I never missed an episode of the challenge from honestly the duel on, and just love it to death, and love talking about it.
Awesome. So I just want to let you know, I I told this is when I was on John and Beth's podcast. So I told them my folks didn't allow me to watch MTV. So I gotta say this, I was very into Survivor. I was a little more of the performance based because I was more of I was a choir kid from 6th grade, 12th grade, and
Mhm.
also in drama from 6th grade to 12th grade as well. So Idol and Got Talent and Dancing with the Stars were my jam, but I do respect Survivor and Big Brother. However, the challenge is a very interesting case. And by the way, we're in Oakland Park, Kansas, where where a couple minutes away there's a certain Wes Bergman.
Yes. Honestly, one of my favorites, and one of the reasons, again, with like Austin being the first real world season that I'm super duper into, Wes has always held a special place in my heart of following his journey. And I feel really lucky that like the group of people that I was super like Austin and Key West led to, those cast members are some of the most iconic challengers and had really cool, interesting arcs as people on the show that not all of the like, biggest names in challenge history have had that compelling of, they might be there for 15 seasons, but we feel like we're kind of seeing the same thing or whatever. Like Wes was one that I felt lucky. I was like, oh, I get the guy that actually had like a major arc here, like clearly changed a good amount as a human, learned how to be amazing on this show while still like being a much better and more amazing human being outside of it, super successful outside of it. I always get an argument. I love when other challengers like don't realize how successful and smart and actually like that Wes, yes, he hams it up on the camera, but like it's all true. And I love when other challengers don't realize it. I'm like, do you not like pay attention to your cast members outside of the show? Like what's going on? But yeah, Kansas City has a strong contingent challengers at this point. I mean, him, Nehemiah, Sylvia. Yeah, there's Kansas City's rocking hard for the challenge.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I gotta say that if there, God forbid, we have a podcasters edition of challenge and it's like voice style and people turn around and there's John and Beth in one chair, Wes on another chair, Derek K on another chair, Paulie on another chair, I am royally screwed.
I think we all are. If they ever do a challenge with the podcasters, it better be separate, like non-cast member podcasters. We'll be all right. Podcast challenge cast members that also podcast about it. We don't need to be taking part with any of them.
Oh, I'm talking about mentors. If they're
Oh,
mentorship,
okay.
I'm like saying I'm screwed, literally, because Wes is from Kansas City. John and Beth are the first two OGs that have believed in the podcast in my podcast. Paulie
Mhm.
has been on my podcast on my platforms 3 different times. Derek is like an honorary older brother figure for me.
Oh,
And
so
also,
you wouldn't know. Yeah, you would be like, whose team am I on? Like this would be horrible for you.
oh, absolutely. I mean, like, and all of them have memories, and sometimes are well known to carry grudges.
Well, that just means that you'd be the star of this hypothetical season, I think.
I gotta say this. There are more people than Worthy, Scott, Pierre, Mike Lewis, Paige. They can have all the credit. I'll just work in the background.
That's what everyone can hope for, as far as being successful. But it's the foreground characters that we remember, even if they go out in flames early because of being in the foreground.
Absolutely. And I gotta say this. Besides Wes, who else do you have of the challenge universe are your favorites?
So I have a very specific top three favorites of all time that no one's ever going to crack, which are Timmy from the earliest seasons. I just thought Timmy Baggy epitomized what like the challenge was or could be in the early seasons and was just like the ultimate great cast member, ultimate great hang. I just love him to death. So he was my number one favorite ever. And then Tyler and Paula, both Key West, again, to what I was saying before. I love them on their show and I love them when they came into the challenge. I think Tyler not getting called back after winning back-to-back seasons, which he's on record like he never got called again until recently on an All-Stars, is of many casting decisions I would have issues with that they've made over the years. That is the number one most idiotic to me that makes absolutely no sense. He's a fantastic cast member and a fantastic competitor itself, winning 4 seasons. And then Paula, I think, is the most underappreciated female cast member in the history of the show. I have her in the best competitor ever discussion, and people hear that and think, you've got to be kidding me. And go back and watch the tape. She was an absolute beast, and her story was just so unbelievable that it did take a long time to win. And then when she did, she wins 2 seasons in, super dominant fashion, paired up with very dominant players, but she was equal to them both times. And so Timmy, Tyler, and Paula are my 3 favorites of all time for sure, unassailable. Like I said, Wes obviously always has a special place to me. And then just to give the new kids love, because I ride for the newer school players more than most, it seems, in the challenge fandom, or I try to give them the benefit of the doubt and like accept that it's, a different era of the show, a different era of the world and social media and all that stuff. But my three faves really of the new school crop is I love Michelle and Devin, and now they're together, which so I'm just like, well, this works for me. Love both of them. And then the one that's super controversial, I am the founder and still potentially maybe only member, because no one ever comes to any of my meetings, of the Fessy fan club. I love Fessy as a cast member. I do not condone. I don't. I'm not a fan or a hater of anything in real life. I'm talking strictly on the challenge as a cast member. I think he is far and away maybe the best cast member of the era 4. As far as just like, is he going to do all the things you want out of a cast member on this show? And so I'm a big Fessy fan, and that gets me in some hot water with a lot of people. That's definitely lost me some listeners
Oh, I
over
could do
the
that with
years.
Asaf and Jay and Ed and
Oh,
Paulie.
oh, Ed's
Those
my
4
guy. Ed is my guy.
I
Okay.
love Ed. Shout out Ed, you rock.
Ed was on because I watched the first 2 seasons of The Circle, and then I was kind of out on it. But when Ed popped up on Spies, Lies, and Allies, and maybe 3% of anyone watching knew who the hell this guy was, and none of the cast members knew who the hell it was, I like lost my shit and just like screamed like, "Holy crap! Like Ed is here! What in the world? Like, how is this even possible?" And my wife came in, and she randomly, one of the few shows we'd watched together was she had watched The Circle with me, so she like knew Ed and Mitchell and Tammy, the mom, and was like, wow, they're like putting Netflix people on this show now. It's like, I guess so, but I'm thrilled because Ed is unbelievable. They need to have him back sooner rather than later.
Absolutely. And speaking of sooner rather than later, please, for the love of God, Jay, and get back Jay. I want Jay back. I know a lot of people are still. I know a lot of people didn't like him because of Battle for a New Champion, but he played a Paul and Tony game and a lot and Tony game that a lot Abrahamian and of course Tony Vlachos game that a lot of people don't like.
Yeah, and I think invite him back now more than ever because he was, the drive in the main storyline and had his, villainous arc. So like bring him back. I understood why on season 40 with the whole like, yes, there's 40 cast members, but there's 5 men and 5 women from each era. So it actually was kind of hard to pick who gets the invites. I was okay with him not getting one of the 5 spots on the era 4 men. I think he definitely should have been in consideration. But yeah, bring him
Um,
back.
I'd rather have Jared and Kylan. Honestly, but
Kylan's just super good at the show, and I think is a real favorite of production, which matters a lot for who gets cast. But I was good with Kylan. They needed to have someone that they had brought in via the CBS of it all. And so I was okay with that. Yeah, but Jay absolutely should have been in the discussion. Era 4 men was honestly the hardest one of like, there's kind of like 8 or 9 people here that I feel like are on
I
similar. There isn't like the standout like you and you are obvious, like of course. My guy Fessy, of course, he's the one I was kind of like,
and
he should
and
be
I
in the
gotta say
discussion.
this. My gotta say this. If they didn't do Josh Mooney so dirty, Josh would have been a great audition, and I would have loved to have seen a Turbo go up against a Brad, Jody, and a Rachel. That would have been electric.
Yeah, Turbo's a difficult one to like. It's just is really really difficult, really difficult one. He is an amazing cast member in a lot of ways. I can understand why it as production you're like, is he worth the difficulties that he brings to us that others don't that might be able to provide some of the same. So I understood that one. Yeah, I'm a huge Joss. I'm a big like the biggest era of casting malfeasance was that like they had all these amazing UK cast members come in around 32, 33, 34, and then they just let them all kind of fizzle out, and only a few of them really got long runs, a few of them by choice. One, like a Theo is thankfully brought back at post, being able to have his eye figured out again.
Mhm.
But Joss and Rogan I was a big fan of Jogan. They did Joss real dirty. I forget I think for All Stars 5, no spoilers here, casting spoilers, or it's casting spoilers, okay, on your
Casting
platform.
spoilers is fine. I told Paige that
Yeah.
as well. So
Yeah. But Joss says he never went to All Stars 5, but all the insider accounts at first claimed he was there, or he left to go film, and then he was the one name that, like, of the initial names that were rumored and put out there, that like these people went to film, his was dropped, and I was almost in tears. I was like, oh my, I got so excited. He was the number one name on this list that I was
and
like,
then
hell yes.
and then I gotta say, Joss also said Battle of the Champions, and then Joss had to say shut that down himself.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, he's incredible, and I would love to see him back.
Absolutely, absolutely. We'll get to some of our favorite cast members later, but however, we got to start working on why did you decide to launch the Historian?
Really, it was that, like, honest the right around the time I launched mine was pretty much the same time that, like, a little after Paige had started hers. Alan Geary, the GOAT, the OG of, in my mind, the OG, and probably the best to do it, of challenge coverage out there. Had his blog forever, but was a little newer into the podcasting part of it. Challenge fandom basically started like the same month as me. There was like a bunch of the shows that now hopefully a lot of people listen to, all of this, because I'm friends with everyone. I love everyone's shows. We kind of all started around the same time. So in my mind, it was like, there's not that many people covering the challenge. Like Scott and Derek were huge already. Challenge Mania was big by that point. But I was like, there's not that many people covering it. And I aspire to, to do this more or less for a living, not just the challenge only, but talk about, like, I love pop culture, I love sports, I love movies, all the whole thing. And, I aspire to work in that world. And so I was like, well, there's, I got to do some things on my own to get my name out there, to, get some reps in and learn this stuff. And the challenge was one of my absolute favorite thing, maybe my most favorite thing. And so it was just like, there should be more people covering this. I think I could do a good job. It'll be fun. I can do it all on my own. And so we started it, and we've been going strong for 3.5 years now. Yeah. May of 21. So 270 episodes later, we're still here. So yeah, thank you.
Congratulations. And as someone that has crossed over 270, congratulations on the longevity. And for me, I'm so glad we're doing this in my 5th anniversary season. The thing is, I admit, yes, I'm a newbie when it comes to this, but however, my real desire was starting a podcast, just one day working with Entertainment Weekly and maybe the Walt Disney Company.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, the challenge, there's so many people like you and Scott and Mike and Dill and Paige and Dylan that do it, all this, and Drew Angelin too. On the other hand, I want to bring on if I have the opportunity to have the cast members, past or present, and possibly future, I would love to talk about their origin story, because and some of their breakout moments, because they can go in depth with the strategy wise with other people. I want to know about the overall experience.
Yeah, about the people. And I mean, everyone's got so much good stories to tell from on screen and certainly off screen. And so, yeah, there's room for it. It's always, I don't do too many cast member interviews yet, at least. But I'm always, when people ask me, like, I go to a bunch of Challenge Mania events, and people will ask, like, do the cast members do too many interviews or anything? I'm like, I don't think so. Like, yeah, it's on us talking to them to, like, make it different or more interesting than the last time they spoke or whatever. But there's a lot of story to be told from all of them. I want to hear from, all of us challenge fans are pretty diehards for the most part. So, like, I can't tell you how many interviews I've listened of the same cast members, 5, 6 different places, different interviews, learning something different about them, being entertained by it all. So I think there's room for all of us, and there's room for these cast members to, spread their story far and wide.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we got to talk about the recaps. I picked up a few of them because this would be a 4-hour podcast if we did all of them. So I picked out the 6 that resonated me the most. I'm going to start with Inferno 2, because this is the 10th anniversary season. It was the first time good guys versus badasses were implemented. The elimination entrances was also included. It was also the very first endurance-based finals, and not to mention Balls In makes its debut. So what were some of your favorite parts rediscovering Inferno 2?
Let me double pull my notes up for all the seasons. I love this. So Inferno 2 to me was it was right in the I break, I know we're on season 40 Battle of the Eras. I think of the eras of the challenge a bit differently than, they had to make it work for 4 teams on a season and everything. I think there's been more than 4 eras of the show. And the first era is really season 1 through 6, and starting with season 7, the Gauntlet is the first kind of really big change where they kind of like felt like they had the template down, if you will. And so Inferno 2 was, 4 seasons into that second era, if you will, and was the height of the era 1 cast. It has one of the better cast, maybe the best cast of all time. I forget. I'm going to try to pull up my rankings as we talk here. I've rated the first 20 seasons, at least, their cast very specifically. And so it's got this insane cast, which is just unbelievable. Like you said, it has maybe my favorite elimination of all time. Like Brad and Abrams Balls In, the first ever Balls In. They've never done it better. They've never done it the same, which is part of the problem. If people hear Balls In and have seen it in a more recent season, go back. I believe it is available somewhere on YouTube. I know this season is actually maybe now finally available on Paramount Plus because it's season 10. It's the first 9 that are not, but it was nonstop. There was no between plays. It was like, here's the ball, Abram. You go, and the moment the ball is dead, I'm going to hand you the ball again, and you're going, and you go 5 times in a row, and then Brad's going to go 5. It's continuous. There's no stopping to it, and they were absolute warriors, and it's one of the more vicious. They're yelling. Darrell's up top yelling at them because there's this behind-the-scenes beef going on. It is just one of the better eliminations of all time, and that season overall, just the good guys, badasses format worked really well. They had the characters to fit that theme that worked really well. And you had the handful of people that were like at the peak of their stardom. And they were some of the biggest stars in the history of the show, in The Miz, Coral, CT, everyone like that. And so it's definitely a standout season. It has maybe like the handful of biggest moments in the history of the show. We had the Brad underwear, turn the underwear into the necklace, the wedgie from the Miz, the Balls In, like we said, Tanya throwing Beth's clothes in the pool. There's a bunch of iconic moments. It just really stood out as, one of the best of that second era in my mind, but kind of the first era to others of the show.
I agree. Those were great moments. And then we got to go to one of my favorite seasons, the duel, and of the throwback seasons, because this was the very first, it's season 13. It was the very first individual season. Jonathan Potassium gives one of his very first hosts. And also, it's one of the greatest battles of all time. Wes and Derek go head to head, one of the great battles, elimination battles. And of course, the greatest love story of them all, CT and DM's love story begins, including their first kiss.
Yes, I recently did. I've done a couple different times ranking all the seasons, and it's hard for me not to put the duel as the best challenge season ever. I say that there's no perfect challenge season. They've never like truly got a 100% A plus. There's always like some little tiny part of even the handful of absolute best seasons ever. So like the duel is the final itself that interesting to watch when it's literally like one on it. They bring 4 people. It's one-on-one. It's like, it's cool that the individual winners when Wes and Jody win, but like, there's like one little thing you could nitpick, but otherwise, like you said, it has the greatest love story reality television has ever told in CT and DM. And at the height of, CT and his stardom early on, and everyone falling in love with DM and her, story on Fresh Meat coming into this world, and it's one of the best from like a competitive standpoint, one of the best cast seasons we've ever had. There was only 20 cast members, so it was smaller, but like 8 of the 10 on the men's side are just absolute beast heavy hitters. So the competition was fierce. The storylines were amazing. The prizes were unbelievable. This is the season where Brad beats CT in the roller derby for the freaking BMW motorcycle, which was just insane that used to be the kind of prize you got for a daily challenge, even if the prize money at the end wasn't that much. Like, that's like a $60,000 BMW motorcycle that Brad thankfully won and still has to this day. It's an all-time season. It has the pole wrestle for the first time. It's definitely, I rank it the best ever most times when I try to say the best ever. But at worst, it's in tier 1 with 4 or 5 other seasons as in the conversation for the best challenge season ever.
Awesome. And let's move on to Fresh Meat 2, Season 19. We have some heavy hitters that become legends make their debuts. I'm talking about Brandon Nelson, the one and only Cara Maria Sabella, Teresa, and of course, the woman that should not be named, her name with the initials L and S. In addition to that, we also have that Wes versus Evelyn. They team up one final time to try to stop Kenny. And of course, you have Carly and Landon's surprising win.
Yes. So this is my favorite season of all time. Like, just personal, subjective. It is also one of the best seasons ever, but subjectively, it is my favorite season of all time. And it is also the thing I always say about this season to people and why it's so good is this is the best cast season of all time. And what I mean by that is not that the cast itself is the best as far as like, what I just said about the dual percentage of people that are really, really good at the game. Casting isn't about on this show getting all of the best possible players. It's about getting a very specific mix and having an idea going in, not manufacturing the storylines, but giving opportunity for storylines. And so this season was perfect to me because they knew we have Kenny and Wes. There's this huge rivalry. There's all this stuff that has happened with them on different seasons recently that they haven't been on together, and then the ruins that they were, in that we want this season to be Kenny versus Wes. How can we build around that? Who should we put there? And they cast it beautifully to make sure it will be Kenny and Wes. The one other big name male will be Landon, who kind of stays out of that stuff and will be very interesting to have on the side. Will he pick a side? Won't he? How much of a threat will he be to them, etc.? And they put incredible, I call role-playing cast members, and I mean that in a positive, complimentary way, like a Jen, like a Ryan, like Paula at that time was still kind of burgeoning into the star that I think she is. But they just cast it so perfectly to be like, this is going to be competitive and interesting. The main storyline that we want is going to happen organically. And it's an incredible, incredible season. The back and forth, Kenny ultimately dismantling, and really his strategic chops go under. I know, he's sometimes could be a difficult subject to talk about in general for some people in the challenge world. But he's an incredible challenge competitor. And that season was his like magnum opus of strategic wise and how he played the house, how he got the alliances in his favor, how he decimated that side of the house. It's just, I love it so much. The house is one of the best houses ever. The parties were great. Like you said, the new cast members, like that crop of Laurel, Cara, Brandon, Luke, Teresa, everyone they brought in was amazing. And it's way up there for me as far as how good of a season it is. And subjectively, it's my favorite season. I've rewatched it. I probably rewatch it at least once a year.
That's awesome. Okay, so we got to talk about Rivals 2, Season 24. CT finally makes his win. Wes finally gets a second win. And Cara Maria gets her third final. Plus, we have some hot romance between Sarah Rice and Jordan. I never thought I would see those two together. Modern day, of course. And then, of course, you have Marlon. We had some serious moments, such as Marlon talking about his bisexuality. We have Frank Sweeney Fox becoming one of the greatest villains of all time because of his efforts to stir the pot. We also have Giselle Canditella leaves the game, and possibly for the last time on the main franchise until her return for the first All Stars. You also have CT, and then of course that famous CT versus Wes and Bananas and Wes's iconic retorts.
Yes, which was the beginning of, is the reason when I said earlier, I find it funny when cast members don't keep up and like don't understand that Wes is like serious and is being honest when he says all the how impressive of an individual he is in the real world and in the business world. This is the moment that I think colored everyone's opinions to be like, oh, it's just like a bunch of bluster and bullshit. Because at that time, it was still a burgeoning business career for him. It, in fact, have a monster truck. And it's just one of the all time things to be able to come back and be like, I've got this, and a monster truck is just like incredible. But I think that's the reason why people then just stop paying attention to Wes in real life from that moment and don't realize now, like, no, like he like like that. He like is that business mastermind entrepreneur, like all those things. Like he actually did that now. Go check in on him. But this season is in the running, similar to the duels, in the running in the handful of best seasons ever. Obviously, people get into watch CT finally win is a huge part of that. Great rookie cast. Why Marlon was never brought back is maybe number two to me, to Tyler not getting recast after winning 2 times in a row. Is way up there. The setting is perfect. Hot weather, jungle based seasons work really well in the challenge. And this was kind of the peak of era 2 folks using the eras from now our current season. Era 2 folks and era 3 folks, the best of the best, kind of coalescing onto one cast, one season. Tons of drama. There's multiple fights this season. There's a lot of hooking up. There's really good competition. And I'm a huge Frank fan. And so Frank and Bananas being partnered together, I loved. And is the last thing I'll say about it, it actually two things, because I have to say it also features maybe the best hall brawl ever, which is kind of a hall brawl, kind of not, but they do the football Oklahoma drill, Marlon and Jordan versus Ty and Leroy, and it is wild and crazy. And I love that as a fan of some of the physical eliminations. But then in the final, I still stand by one of my crazy takes that can never, no one can ever say yes or no because we'll never know. It's a complete hypothetical. But 3 teams start that final, and the very first leg is swim to shore, put together a puzzle, and one of the 3 teams gets purged at that moment. And Jordan and Marlon get purged. And I am confident if they would just not have had purge, it just would have been all 3 teams get to do the whole final. Jordan and Marlon would have been not our first ever rookie winners, because back in the team seasons, rookies won all the time, but one of our first pair rookie winners, and would have started their challenge careers with an absolute bang. They would have come back and won that final. I stand by that. There's no way to ever be like, you're right or you're wrong. It's complete hypothetical, but I like to always say, I think they would have come back, and I don't think anyone should be purged. 3 teams is not enough for a final. Like, let them all play. Again, back to the duel thing. A final amongst 2 teams is not that interesting to watch.
I gotta say this. I kind of wish they went back like this for 40 and like said, okay, everybody, unleash everything. And I wish this episode that this series is the longest final ever, and because that would give so many people a chance to shine instead of what we have now. We'll get to what we have now in a minute, but like I kind of wish that was the format.
They did over the years. One of the things I think they needed to figure out, and like they still hadn't at this point, and they get better at the later it goes, but they still don't seem to 100% grasp it, is the more people left at the end, the better. Like that the final should have 12 or 14 or whatever people. And they've gotten much better at doing the like, the penultimate episode will be like a double elimination and we'll go from like 16 to 10. And so at least you have 16 cast members left for the second to last episode. But the episodes dip by the end of the season because, if you're watching, you're a fan of a couple, you're rooting against a couple people. And if you're like, I'm team Wes, like I'm here to watch Wes, and he gets eliminated halfway through, then you're less likely to keep watching. And I think they figured out over the years, like, yeah, we need to stop having this just be from 30 down to 6, like, in methodical order, and be how many can we keep, whether it was like using a redemption house or just a bunch of eliminations right at the end, whatever. They've done a better job. And they've started to be consistent, like 10 people about go to the final, but it needs to always be at least 10, if not like 12 or 14, especially when you have a cast of 40, because it keeps more of us interested because there's more of the people we're interested in, their stories, whatever we're rooting for, making it to that final episode. It is a TV show after all. You can't just drop all of the cast and be down to like 4 or 6 people for the last episode or 2 of your show.
I always had the Brent Street thing that you had. Mm-hmm. Brent Street, where you have, for those of you who don't know this or know about reality TV, Brent Street is a game generator. So I put in 60 of my all-time favorite players, and I would love to have seen that happen. But however, realistically, I would have been booted out and fired from Paramount if I ever suggested that idea.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, that reunion money we talked about before we started recording, they fly all these people to Amsterdam for seemingly no reason for spend that money to keep 3 more people for the final. I don't know. There's ways to do it. But yeah, I would love a 20-person final of like an individual, like, yeah, you're all running it. Like, I don't know. I know it's a huge ordeal to build that operation and all the games and everything they play, but I would love a like massive final of just like, yeah, you guys think the season's halfway over? No, the final's tomorrow. You're all running it. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah, and I'm like, there are also times I'm like, there needs to be like a golden buzzer rag from AGT because I'm from the Got Talent world and I cover Got Talent. There needs to be like a golden buzzer that I could hit. And like, for example, I would have hit on Paulie, would hit on Tony, which would have been a fun one to have. And this season, and then maybe push it on Amanda, and then use it on, and then maybe Derek and Jody
to like save them. Like you get to go to the end,
them,
like
and they're going to the midpoint. No matter what happens, you cannot be eliminated. They get a golden ticket to the first mini final.
Yeah, I think that was always the thing that worked best about like a redemption house was just like, all right, they're gone, but we promise on episode 10 all of these people will come back and at least half of them will win their way back in and they'll be here again. So like, you don't leave yet. If your favorite person's gone, there'll be a few episodes where they're over here and we're not showing them, but they're not gone. And I think that's the best thing of the redemption house. Again, though, it is, the money of it all and everything else. But there's ways around it, spend the money differently.
This season, to be honest with you, 40 need to be redemption house. Really, really bad.
I think it's just too many people. They're like, we're already doing 40 people here. Like this, if we then have them have to be eliminated twice, like that is a lot of people needing to be eliminated. But
and not to mention, and a lot of our favorite people would have their stuff, their egos bruised twice.
Yeah, but I mean, if they would have done it,
it would have been made for a more fun reunion.
Yeah, certainly. They could have done it like the way they did Dirty 30, where the redemption house there was like, you guys all go over there, but there's just going to be one big game where 10 of you compete in it and 4 of you get back in the house because we aren't going to be able to like build and do elimination after elimination. It's just going to be one big silly game that's easy for us to build. All of you will play it. A couple of you will get back in. We'll do that twice. They could have done that style where it's like, all right, there's 20 of you. You go do like the daily challenge they did in the episode that aired last night. They could have just like, you guys go do that, and the winners, you get back in the house, and that's how we're doing this because we can't. There's too many of you. We can't build all this crazy stuff. They could have done it, but I understand with 40 cast members, they're like, just be happy that we brought 40 freaking people to this, and be good with it. And I am. I think they're doing a good job so far with this season.
All righty, so we brought up Redemption House, so we got to bring up 30. This was the 30th anniversary season. This was the first time a $1 million prize was offered. It makes history as the first non-binary competitor. And we also did double cross, one of the most polarizing aspects, gets a makeover. And Jemmy uses it to her advantage. And not to mention the Young Bucks, the first incarnation of them, probably the best. Corey, Nelson, and Hunter try their best to target events, but they all fail. And finally, we have that insane finale.
Yeah, definitely the most impressive win in the history of the show, just because he did it on a torn knee, similar to, Derek on this season, going through playing multiple ridiculous things that no one who's injured, let alone has a torn MCL and ACL, should be doing, but was doing. But Jordan, the crash landing, there is a kind of scary random history of how many incidents with skydiving they have had in challenge history, but that's for another story time for another time. But yes, him crashing, injuring himself that bad, and then running a very difficult final versus CT and Derek and winning is probably the most impressive thing that's ever been done in challenge history. They nailed it. I thought, they were coming off of the momentum of the 20s. Like I call the golden age of the challenge is Rivals through free agents, like that just little stretch really through Rivals 2. That 5-6 season run, whatever that is, with Rivals 1, X's 1, free agents, and Rivals 2 is unparalleled as far as how great it was for a sustained period of time. So there was like a little lull after that. Rivals 3, Bloodlines, especially not great. And then Invasion was like, this is good again, but now we got this big, it's big round number. Are they going to actually be able to make an amazing season? And I thought they really did with Dirty 30. I thought they brought all the right people back. I agree with you. The best version of the Young Bucks was the first version on Dirty 30. I really, really enjoyed them. You had Ashley quitting for the first time of multiple times. I say that as a pretty big Ashley fan. And the Redemption House used well. We had said that before. The $1 million thing gets me going. We won't go there because it was the first and almost nearly the last time we saw $1 million be handed out. They didn't stick to $1 million for very long, and I feel like they absolutely should be doing that every season. But super duper memorable, really good cast, and I think a really good launching point for that next era of the show. And they refound their glory in a lot of ways, because I think the second best stretch in the history of the show might then be, not maybe including Dirty 30, but Dirty 30 to War of the Worlds 2 is like as unparalleled to me. Other fans are a little like, oh, come on, like don't compare those two things. But I think that stretch is as good as pretty much any in the show's history too, and Dirty 30 started it all.
And I gotta say, you brought it up. War of the Worlds 1. This, after Final Reckoning, I was so shocked when this is probably one of my all-time favorite seasons of this show. It is the perfect storm. The challenge world was expanded like no other. You have 18 rookies on this show. I'm talking, yes, you have all of them are memorable no matter what happened in real life. Stephen Bear, Dee, Georgia, Josh, Maddie, Morgan, Ninja, Theo, and Turbo. I never think we would never have something like that ever happen again, where you have a majority of the spiciest, most rowdiest group of people I've ever seen. You also have Nani and Wes make their glorious returns after a long time off. You have Hunter finally getting his revenge on Ashley after Final Reckoning, where she took the money. You have the formation of powerful duos such as Wes and Dee, Turbo and Nani, Cara Maria and Theo, and Polly and Ninja. And not to mention, you also have two of the most colorful duos we have ever seen, Bear and Davon, and Josh and Amanda. And also, Turbo, the first wins the toughest challenge in final in show history.
Yeah. So are you War of the Worlds 1 over War of the Worlds 2 for you? You like one better?
I gotta say, it's so tough, but like it leans onto War of the Worlds because that's when I was a little more I'm so excited for this because I never thought this would happen before. Like where you see people from Big Brother and you have this Survivor Turkey, which I never heard of Survivor Turkey before.
Yeah.
And then Love Island and then Geordie Shore. I never heard of Geordie Shore.
I've still never went back and watched any Geordie Shore. I really want to. I feel like I would probably like it. But so right before season 40, I did an abbreviated version, shorter form version of recapping every season of the challenge from 1 to I got to War of the Worlds 2, and then I was a few days behind in the season debuted, and I never finished the last 4 or 5. But one of the most kind of polarizing, interesting things that popped up was every challenge fan out there seems to either War of the Worlds 1 or 2 is one of their all-time favorite seasons. But if they like 1, they think a lot less of 2 than most do. And if they like 2, they think less of 1 than most others do. It's this weird polarizing thing where everyone's like, those seasons rule, but I really firmly like this one, or I really firmly like that one. And I am in the camp of they're both absolutely amazing and
I totally
wonderful.
Agree.
War of the World, I would take War of the Worlds 2, but I think I had them both in the top 5 or top 6, maybe best ever seasons. War of the Worlds 1, like you said, yeah, the cast. I know that, it's hard to say like Bear was an amazing rookie cast member because he's an absolutely awful human being, but on the show, he was an amazing rookie cast member. There was a ton of other not controversial or horrible human beings, amazing rookie cast members in that group. They proved again, like, they've basically done 5 fresh meat seasons in the history of the show, and they've nailed the casting 3 to 3.5 of those 5 times. Bloodlines was kind of a fresh meat-ish, but it was a specific, family member, which made it a lot harder, and that flopped pretty badly. But Fresh Meat 1 and Fresh Meat 2, rookie class, unbelievable. This one essentially is Fresh Meat 3 because, like you said, half the cast is rookies from all over the world, all over different shows, and they crush it. And then the fifth one is Spies, Lies, and Allies, which I give a half point to because and it sounds like maybe you also, because of the Eds and different people of the world, think they did a better job than most would say with the rookie casting there.
The thing is, I gotta stop you with Spies, Lies, and Allies, because the thing is, yes, they had Ed. Yes, they had Tommy and Michaela and Michelle make their debuts on that season. But at the same time, I wasn't connected to some of these people like a Gabon or a Taka or somebody like that. Or like I didn't, or a Emmy. I wasn't connected.
Yeah, I mean, it's why it ultimately failed. And I think it seems like they should have been able to figure that out before. That is like their goal was, let's expand the audience by bringing people from different parts of the world or different shows that, yeah, the core challenge fans might not be connected to them, but other people are, and maybe they'll come and become challenge fans. And that obviously did not work. Those people did not bring new audiences in. It only kind of bothered core audience members like us that were like, I don't know who these people are, and I don't really care to know
I'm
who
like,
they are
seriously,
necessarily.
unban Polly, unban Cara Maria.
Yeah.
Where was Jay? Where was Amanda? Amanda was there, but
Yeah.
where was Sylvia?
Yeah. So that's why I give it a half, because I'm a big Ed fan, I'm a big Corey fan, and a couple others that are there. So it's like they did a half job. The mission they were on was a failed one, but they still found a couple good ones in it. But to close up War of the Worlds 1, it is the hardest final of all time. And I think it's because TJ, Wes, Cara, all three say it and say it firmly, authentically. And those three have, obviously seen borderline every final ever between the three of them. And so I take their word for it. And it did actually look that way, which makes the final interesting. And it's hard to make the final actually interesting to watch other than just like who wins. Okay. But it's a great season. It's a draft to start it. I love when they do a draft for teammates. It always works. It's 100% success rate to make interesting, fun TV. It ends up making good teams for a good full season. It works here. And a lot of memorable moments from War of the Worlds 1, and was the height of like they were, bringing all these UK folks in that were all really, really good on this show.
Absolutely. So we got to leave the recaps because we got to talk about something that not a lot of fans or podcasters can say that they've done. But you, my friend, made internet roar with delight when you revealed that you had to sit down with the one and only TJ Lavin.
Yes. Honestly, one of my like favorite things like ever, definitely like the highlight of my current year. TJ, obviously beloved as he should be by all challenge fans. He's, I think the best host in the business. I know it's very different jobs all the different hosts do, but the fact that he's never been just nominated for the Emmy, I get it. He can't ever win the Emmy for best reality host because he is not asked to do what some of the other hosts who are also the executive producers and showrunners and all that are asked to do. I get it, but there's 5 nominations every year and he's been hosting the show for damn near 20. Let's get the man. Can we give him one nomination? Like, come on, it's ridiculous.
And guys, you can have, let's see, you could have RuPaul sit up to someone out because he's done it and he's done great work, but like, Ru, please give TJ a chance, give Terry Crews a chance. Please, it'd be nice to see them get some recognition after all these years.
Yeah, I mean, it deserved. Yes, does RuPaul do? It's Jeff Probst and RuPaul deserve to be nominated every year, and one of them should probably win every year. But again, it's because they're doing a lot more than hosting; they're running the show and making decisions. So it's a different thing. That's a random tangent, but I believe strongly TJ deserves to be an Emmy-nominated host because he's that good and he's beloved. It should matter how beloved and cherished you are by the fan base. And there's many other big shows who don't like their hosts. Like it's not unanimous that you just love the host of the show. But TJ, unbelievable guy. He's always been supportive of and all the content I make. I'm tagging cast members and him and stuff all the time, and it's probably really annoying for them when it's like, who is this guy that just has tagged me like 30 times in a row on all these videos and all these things. And he was always sending messages back, like the content, being a really nice guy. And so I took the chance. I was in Vegas. I knew I was pretty confident they weren't currently filming a season because he spends more than half of his life filming seasons at this point and has for many years, and reached out to him. And he is, to tell you how a guy he is, he didn't, his invite to me wasn't like, oh, let's do an interview. It was, he gets coffee any morning he's in Las Vegas. So again, like half of his mornings maybe in a year, every morning he goes to the same Starbucks with the same group of guys, and they get coffee and they just chat about life, like old school communal style. Like we just meet and chat and then we go our ways for the day and whatever. And so he invited me to come have coffee with them, which was amazing, unbelievable experience, really cool group of guys. And it made me feel bad. It's why the interview I do is so short and kind of quick, is because I was like, we were there for, damn near an hour. And I was like, yeah, actually, I did come. I was hoping we could record something. I'm having so much fun though. And so we got to record a little. Hopefully there'll be maybe a longer version in the future. I'll be able to sit down with him again. But is an amazing guy, lives anything you think about him positively, which it should all be positive. It's real. It's authentic. He's just the coolest guy with probably the coolest life, and is just 10 out of 10. Can't recommend that guy more. He's just the absolute best.
I'd love to sit down with TJ as well. And if he ever comes to Kansas City, and if you guys come to Kansas City, I would love to have you guys.
Yeah, I'm trying to come to Kansas City sometime soon, because so the other thing is, he was the reason I've only done a couple cast member interviews, and I don't get into them too much because I hope to do a bunch of in-person one in the future. So he was the first one that like worked really well. It's like, I'm going to be where you are. I know you're so nice and so, appreciative of myself and others that make content around this. And so it was the first one that I had the opportunity to do in person. But I'm, like, I'd really love to do an interview with Wes, but like I want to do it in person. So I'm trying to come to Kansas City sometime in the near future. And if I do, I will definitely let you know. We'll do a version of this in person.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it'd be great to see you. And then also, who knows, maybe you convince Wes to make a surprise appearance.
Yeah, if we get him away from that very busy life that he's leading. But he's good for short-term stuff, just not, the multiple months that a challenge takes at this point.
Absolutely. So now we got to talk about, while you're all here, it's 40. This is a quick version. So let's talk. I have some talking points because this season has been insanely talkable. Let's start off the fact that almost everybody that have rooted for, or said announced I'm rooting for, are gone. Almost everyone was decimated. Amanda, Paulie, and Tony all left early.
Is there anyone left? Is there any of your favorite, like who's left is like that you're now top of your list of who you're rooting for then?
Cara, Rachel, you're right on
Okay.
the hill.
Well, you're still doing fine. You're in good hands if you're pulling for Cara and Rachel. I think you're gonna be invested
And then, of
to
course,
the end.
Corey Wharton. So those three.
Oh hell yeah. Corey has grown. I've always been like a fan, but as far as how much I'm rooting for him has increased dramatically in the last couple of seasons, because I think he's
I
just
agree. I never thought
consummate professional, deserves it, and I want to see him do really well.
I am so proud of him. Seriously, he made all the growth that he's had. It's amazing.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
it's been sad because the thing is, like, it's truly an end era. When you had Derek made this injury, where he actually, like, I'm surprised that Derek took Mark. That was shocking. And then this season's been full of shocking eliminations. Like, we had Tina taking down Emily, of all people, and Nehemiah taking down CT.
Yeah, that might be, as far as two eliminations in the same episode, like shockers, is got to be pretty historical, as far as just the names of like Nehemiah beating CT and Tina beating Emily. Not that Nehemiah and Tina are any scrubs or anything. They're very good competitors. But if you didn't know the game and you were just like, you just saw, oh, in one episode, Nehemiah takes out CT and Tina takes out Emily, you'd be like, holy cow, like that is unbelievable. Once you know the game, it's a, kind of more of a 50-50 toss-up style game. It makes a little more sense, but it was definitely an incredibly memorable arena segment, at which a season this big needs some really memorable eliminations. And that one, that double kind of probably stands out as the most memorable so far this season. I think so, at least. I mean, there's been some good ones, but I think that probably stands out.
I gotta say, another one is like, I could definitely see that name, that I was so happy when they had the J painting of J being CT from Total Madness up there. I was like, yes, I'm so glad they had it, because now I think Jay and Nehemiah would be taking notes, because they're like the only people from my memory that could that say, hey, you took down CT Tamburello.
A few have, yes, but certainly the two recent ones. But there's a handful of people that can say they've beat CT straight up in something, whether elimination or otherwise, true head to head. He's been beaten more than people realize, but his real thing is that at some point people stopped trying to beat him, and then he just walks into the finals and whoops their butts.
And then, of course, we had Derek with that injury, which I was so sad to see. It was like Derek, of all the vets, the most. Yes, I'm being biased, but Derek, for me, I was of the Gen 1 was probably at the top of my list of who I wanted to see go into battle. I would love to have seen in a perfect world scenario, if there's one representative from each era from the guys, it'd have been for me Derek. It would have been representing era 1. It would have been, even though I can't stand his guts, Potassium would be another one.
You call him
It would be Corey for era 3, and then Paulie from era 4. Because the thing is, Derek and Potassium to go see if they can prove on the record, and Corey and Paulie to finally give them the wins they deserve. And for era 1, it would have been phenomenal to see Jody make it after being gone for so long. And then era 2, of course, Rachel. Era 2, Cara Maria, of course. Era 3, Joanna, especially after winning All-Stars 2 and 3. And then, of course, Jenny, because I haven't seen Jenny in a year. We haven't seen Jenny since Total Madness, and I think giving Jenny one final thing would have been perfect. That would have been my dream scenario.
Your dream scenario is a good one, and luckily for us, pretty much all the scenarios are ending up going to be pretty good with this. The cast is stacked as it was and as well done as they did with the casting. That yes, I'm sad that your dreams got crushed, but thankfully the alternative is still pretty dang interesting. But I'm right there with you that the Derek injury, especially, like, it really bothered me last night. So episode 10 aired last night, and they were the same ditch. They were on the same field, and they had to go run through the same ditch where Derek, tore multiple ligaments in his knee. And I'm like, do you guys really, like, you had a competitor tear his ACL and MCL because he had to jump in that ditch. Could you not just literally ditch the ditch for the next time? Like, did it really add that much to this challenge? Couldn't they have just not had to run through that again and not risk another person getting injured? Clearly it's a bad idea to jump like 8 feet down into mud. Like, doesn't work so well. And so that bothered me that they were using that again after having that man do the Riot Shield Gladiator challenge on a torn knee and then the boxing match on a torn knee. Like, you can't say enough positive words about Derek Hart and the champion that he is, but he should not have been doing that. I get that they were probably like, we can't have you go home. Like, your team's gone. Like, we need someone here. Please, will you do it? But they better have done a lot more than just paid for his medical bills after that one. He should have get an extra big old bag of money on the side for sticking it out and not leaving them with, no one left on era 1 even earlier than it ended up being.
And not to mention the fact he was part of the most heated debate I have ever seen with Horacio and Derek. And I'm like, I was on Team Derek from the jump.
That was, I think, a really cool moment. And for any challenge fans who are not aware, if you don't listen to Challenge Mania or just, don't pay attention too much outside of the show itself, that they actually gave the raw footage to Horacio and Derek and let them watch it together on a Zoom so that they could then both talk accurately about, exactly what happened, both what they felt in the moment and then, what they learned afterwards. They had never done that before in the history of the show. And I thought that was really, really cool that they did do that. And it's part of watching this show. It's the part that I think fans don't, I criticize as much as anyone as far as like wanting everything to be perfect, wanting them to do a better job, the best job possible. But people, I don't think through how difficult it is to build all this stuff, like literally build the things. And I've said in a few places before, I have the most minor direct experience of this. Once upon a time, for a year. I worked for a company that they weren't Tough Mudder. It was a different brand, but essentially put on Tough Mudders, the 10-mile obstacle course, races that people go do. And I was on the obstacle team. I was a part of, you get dropped in a location for a week, and we had to build 26 obstacles for this obstacle course, which is somewhat similar to all the stuff they have to build. And it's a crazy job. It's very, very difficult. They're working with not big budgets, and they're building something brand new for every elimination, every daily challenge for upwards of 40 people at different times. It's really difficult to do and to be like, all right, we're going to have these two contraptions and they're going to be perfectly exactly the same, exactly sound design. Shit's going to go wrong. Sorry for all the cursing I'm doing on the show today.
No problem at
if your
all.
audience is used to it. But like, it's horrible when that happens, when like Horacio's ball gets stuck. Some of his things are falling out more regularly than Derek's. They're both confused in the moment of like, who's helping with what's allowed, what's not allowed, the whole thing. But it makes sense that stuff does when you step back and look holistically. Like, that stuff's going to happen. It is unavoidable given the job that they have to do day in and day out of building all these things. And so it's horrible to watch when it happens, especially if you're rooting hard for one side or the other, or you feel like someone got screwed or other. But a lot of the cast members have talked about it, especially my guy, your guy, Potassium. I just love that you call him Potassium.
Thank you.
But Bananas, has amongst many cast members have talked of the many, many times that they've had to stop eliminations. They've had to, one of the most famous ones in my book is Tony and Bananas losing to Natalie and Paulie on Final Reckoning in an elimination that was literally the day later. They had done a different elimination. Johnny and Tony were winning, wiping the floor with them. Something broke. They decided, we are going to call it off. We're going to come back tomorrow and do a different elimination. And that's the one that they ended up losing. Natalie beats Bananas and holding her hands above his head, and they go home. But like, there's stuff like that happens almost every season. It's unavoidable. It's terrible, but unavoidable. And so I thought it was so cool that they showed the raw footage to Derek and Horacio, and that those two got together on a podcast and talked about it and came to an understanding. And I would be bitter if I was Horacio. That sucks, especially for a guy who's an actual like athlete, competitor, amateur to professional level. I get how unbelievably upset you would be of like, this is supposed to be fair. This is supposed to be buttoned up, but it's the challenge. It's never going to be perfectly fair, perfectly buttoned up. It's just not possible.
And it's a shame to say that error caused the potential of losing one of Era 4's biggest presence in the future. Because the thing is, we all saw with the last rodeo on Horacio's thing. We were all shocked when we saw that. And I hate that it came to come with this, because Horacio, in all honesty, has become one of the Era 4's greatest guys.
I think he'll be back. I think, he's going to have plenty of opportunity. He's done a bunch of other shows and things before, but I think he is a competitor. And, if the soccer career ever, takes a real step back, which at some point it would, but I know he still pursues that. He does a bunch of other shows and things. It might not be the next season or two, but if we, get to season 50 of the show, we're going to have seen Horacio a few times, I'm guessing, because they're going to give him what he deserves to come back. And I think he's eventually the competitive itch is going to be there. He's going to want to come back and prove himself.
Absolutely. And speaking of proving themselves, Rachel Robinson, wow. She proves that legends never died. I was cackling like a Emperor Palpatine when she took down Avery, because you know how much I feel about Tony, about how Avery really screwed up Tony with that episode. And so I was cackling like Palpatine so hard. And I was cackling when Ryan got out as well, because the thing is, that middle finger was uncalled for, and Tony's daughters, and that was there, and I felt so sorry for Tony's daughters.
Yeah, the Tony Avery part was, I thought the edit was incredibly unfair to Tony, as far as bringing in, like, there's a lot of times in challenge history, unfortunately, that you can talk about misogyny or the men trying to control the women or not respecting the women or anything like that. There's a lot of times that can be part of the story, and should be, because it is. This one, how they painted it as like, this guy won't listen to her because she's a like woman or whatever. I was like, none of that's going on here. This isn't one of those moments. We don't
Mhm.
need to be doing that. We don't need to be besmirching Tony. So I
And
was fully on
Tony
his
is not
side.
Zach. Tony is not Abram.
Yeah.
Tony's not the potassium coat. Tony's not Kenny. That's why I
Yeah.
kind of got upset. And that's why I kind of was a little bit like, oh my God, yes, I would have said that. I would have loved to have gone to Challenge Mania, given a bill figure to Ryan and to Avery and to Adam and to Derek.
Yeah.
That Scott would have killed me.
Well, yeah. So I thought he was doing it being incredibly dumb as far as like just give in, don't go in and go home because of it. That's whether he won it was okay with that or not. That's a different discussion. So I disagreed with his decision, but I really, really disagreed with how it was portrayed in the edit it got of like that's super unfair. And you don't like I get that they drew the link to like the last time this happened was Zach and Amanda. And on that instance, it was like, yeah, you can bring some of this stuff up because that dynamic between those two people, I think some of that stuff was at play between those two and in that decision that they, where they go throw themselves in. And I get that that was on Tony's behalf. So you show the clip, you link the two situations, sure. But yeah, I felt it was really disingenuous that they like painted this as oh, look at Tony. He doesn't respect women, so he won't do what Avery wants. It's like, no, he's being dumb. He should just do what she wants. He shouldn't put his foot down this hard. But also, like, none of that other negative stuff needs to be attached to this moment. That's totally unfair to him.
Yeah, but like the thing is, I was still calculating like
Yeah.
Palpatine when Avery got out and when Ryan got his karma as well. So I was so happy. And like, however, the thing is, you can't do like the Howard Stern. You can't go like in like Howard Stern 90s or Wendy Williams or Simon Cowell, Elton John mode anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you'll be canceled.
Yeah, for sure. And Rachel is obviously doing amazing. I love that because the thing about Rachel is she deserves every bit of her legendary status and is probably second place to I said earlier Jordan's War of the Worlds or Dirty 30 win is the most impressive finals ever because of the injury. Second to that is possibly Rachel on Duel 2, how dominant she was in winning that final. Like, so she deserves her status in the game, her legendary status and everything. But I think the thing that kind of goes under the radar is she didn't do that many seasons. And so like that status is deserved and earned, and I love her to death, but there isn't actually like as much to back it up or like as many opportunities to showcase how amazing she is as some of these other legends of the games that were like, oh, they did like 10 seasons or 12 or whatever. So I love that we're getting the full like 100% best case. She's playing probably the best game there. I mean, you maybe can't say that because her team did so bad that you're like, you have to, if you're really grading all these people out so far, you have to like, you can't put an Era 1 player probably first overall is playing the best so far. But especially in the episode that aired last night, and we go into the individual portion, she was the one that read the room instantly the best first of like, all right, with this new setup, the only thing that matters is the men control the women's fate, the women control the men's. So I need to be aligned with all of the men that can win dailies. I've already got bananas. I'm somehow squashed that beef from the past and we're friends, whatever. I've got Jordan secretly, like we see last night. She's off like having a conversation with Jordan of like, this doesn't have to be public, but we've got each other's back. And she's maneuvering the best. She's competing, doing unbelievable in the eliminations, the dailies, the whole thing. So I love there is a little less Rachel in the history of the challenge than I would have liked. Certainly. I love that she went and lived her life and everything else. But I'm loving that we're getting the 100% best case Rachel scenario here to showcase it once again for any newer challenge fans and just for challenge fans in general.
Absolutely. And the best part, she took time the Vacation Alliance. She started to dismantle the Vacation Alliance.
Yes. I loved when they, during that episode, when they show the picture of the Vacation Alliance, but they like grayed out Anissa. And I was like, Anissa was on this season. She's just already gone. Like, what? Come on, guys.
And why didn't they gray out Bessie or Nani?
Yeah, they were very focused on like it's a much more fun story, and I totally get it. Of like, well, the core of the Vacation Alliance, these 4 people that are here, and 2 of them are about to be eliminated tonight. So like, makes perfect sense. I'm all for it. But yeah, the Vacation Alliance is a little bigger. And the other thing that I found very interesting and is maybe one of the more interesting dynamics in the last couple episodes is Tori and Bananas going at it again. Is like Bananas, the thing about him is he was an honorary member of the Vacation Alliance. When he came back on Ride or Dies as Captain Save a Show and didn't really save the show entertainment wise because he decided to not do what he's doing right now on this season, which I'm loving, of being antagonistic, villainistic, hamming it up, entertaining Bananas. On Ride or Dies, he was like, well, my partner's Nani and she's in this alliance, and this alliance that I've been making fun of on my podcast and saying it's boring. Well, I also probably can get to the end if I just work with them. So we just worked with them and sat in the background, and it was pretty boring. But it worked for his game. So I found it interesting that, he was on the other side of this dismantling of the Vacation Alliance. It's like, well, you did use them for a little bit. We should throw that in there. You were a part of it. You were tangentially a part of it, but it's certainly fun. And I know Challenge fandom pretty unanimously anti-Vacation Alliance. So I know there was big cheers all across the fandom that night. Yourself clearly
I was part
included.
of those cheers.
Yeah.
And then also I got to say this. I never imagined that Tori and Cara Maria would be on the same page. Never in a million years, it feels like.
Common enemies bring people together, and
so Potassium.
In this case, yeah, it looks like
Laurel.
Laurel a little bit. I don't think Tori, though. The interesting thing about this is just going to be with this setup of like the women controlled the men and the men controlled the women as far as their fate in the game and eliminations and targets and everything, is that like it will be, we already saw last night with Bananas and Jordan realizing we can go at each other, like call each other out, and it doesn't matter because I can't throw you in, I can't target you. I have to have someone, a woman, do that for me. And so on the women's side, they can be like, look around and be like, how are Cara, Jenny, Rachel, Laurel, and Tori, all five, unbelievable, some five maybe of the best ever physically, competitively, how we all left and we can't even actually like ourselves target each other. Like, Tori can't be like, I can't run a final against Laurel. I got to get Laurel out. She's got to convince someone else to do it. And unfortunately, maybe unbeknownst to her, her person to convince to do that would be Jordan, who is definitely working with Laurel behind the scenes and is why Jordan and Bananas are just in unbelievable positions right now, having deals with at least 3, if not 4 of the 5 most dominant women in the house. And Rachel's in an unbelievable position, having deals with the 2 best men in the house, Jordan and Bananas, and Josh is a third. Those 3 are just set up in this new now individual portion for a lot of success.
And that gives me a question is, Corey thought he was on the unders right now when he was with Era 3. But now I think I could see Corey either jump. It puts Corey in a very interesting position. Does he join Potassium Rachel, or does he go join Tori and Cara Maria?
I think for any man in the house outside of Johnny Bananas, the correct read would be to look around and realize, all right, so the women control my fate. And Bananas has a strong alliance with 4 of the 6 best, 4 of the 5, 4 of the 6 best women in the house. And there's no other men over there. I should join that now. I should be like, Bananas, I want to be second in command of the men's side of your alliance, because then I am second, protected by all of these women you have surrounded yourself with. So if I'm Corey, I'm going and begging him, like, we should finally work together. This will be great. You don't have another, like, you don't have another guy in this. I'll be number 2 to you. There's still plenty of guys left. I won't be targeted anytime soon. If I'm him, I'm trying to do that. If I'm Theo, if I'm Kyland, if I'm anyone left in the game, I am trying to be like, that alliance is big, but it's almost just all women and Bananas. I want to be the second man in that alliance that's going to get a lot of protection. And we'll just see if, I would assume Nehemiah and Derek have the in to kind of fill that spot, just because it's a bunch of Era 2 and 1 women for the most part in the Bananas Angels, as they're calling it, alliance, which I'm glad that Cara got in no, actually it's Rachel, the CEO, and the other people or whatever. I was like, yeah, let's let Rachel be the ringleader of this alliance. Like, we don't need this.
And it's sad that Rachel and Cara are not working together anymore, especially Potassium and Laurel are teammates.
but they're not going to be working against each other in any way, I don't think. I don't think Rachel is going to care. Like if Cara throws in bananas, I don't think Rachel's going to care ultimately, and it won't affect them. So I think they're going to be able
And
to
if
just have
Cara
their
does
nice
throw in
friendship.
Jordan, it could be a little bit of a problem.
I think Rachel's just in such a great position of like, I've aligned with these people, but it's not like they're my best friends or anything where it's like going to go beyond the game. And ultimately, so like she'll probably be fine and is smart enough too to like not throw a fit on behalf of Jordan or Bananas. Like she wants them there because that's her protection, having the two best guys in the house protecting her. But I think she's way too smart and doesn't care nearly enough about them outside of the game that if someone threw one of them in, she's going to be like, well, that sucks because I would like them to be here for my benefit, but I'm not going to throw a big fit about it. I'm not going to go to bat for these two guys that hard.
Absolutely, absolutely. But we do have Theo's promise to Paulie that's still going on in this game.
To protect Cara, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, which always never made sense. Like I understood, the whole story of how Theo and Paulie ended up at odds, but like Cara and Theo still have that bond from War of the Worlds 1 and being partners and being damn good partners at that, running that final together and everything else. So I definitely see those two working together very strongly. And then
those two could be a very dangerous duo.
Certainly, although last night's daily performance was not the most inspiring for Theo, certainly. But the conditioning might not be what it was circa, War of the Worlds 1, but he's still a damn good competitor and would be a good ally have. It'll be interesting to see if it turns into, is it just full blown two factions, like everyone picks one side or the other and it's kind of two big alliances, or is it like, yeah, there's that alliance over here and there's the remnants of this other one, but like there's a lot of floaters and it's kind of a mixed web of like Theo and Cara are working together, but Theo and Jenny are also, but Jenny's with Bananas. And I think it's probably going to go much more this kind of weird web, and only a couple people, the three I mentioned, especially Rachel, Jordan, Bananas, will be the one that have the most touch points and the proper touch points to be the most protected, at least for the next couple rounds of the show.
All righty, we got to start winding down our conversation. So why should my audience check out the challenge historian?
Where they could check it out is anywhere they watch or listen to podcasts. So YouTube Challenge Historian, called the Challenge Historian, Spotify, Apple, if you're an audio only listener, and Instagram account, though there's not a ton of content on the Instagram account. Sometimes there is, sometimes there's not. If you ever want to get in touch with me, I do respond to DMs. I'm on there all the time. I just don't post a whole bunch there. And why they should is if you are either an OG Challenge fan, or if you are a newer Challenge fan and you keep hearing all this stuff about how great it used to be and all this other stuff, whether you want to believe it or not, if you're interested in learning a little more about the OG seasons, definitely go check out on my YouTube page 2 different versions you can go to back in 2022. Some of what Jacob was referencing here, I did like deep dives of seasons 1 through 20. There is 2-hour plus podcast about each and every one of those seasons. Very, very in-depth. Or the more recent, shorter, there is a literal 60-second version or a like 5 to 10 minute version of every season 1 through 36. Memorable moments, storylines, cast, the whole thing. So if you're like, either I'm nostalgic to check out stuff about the first 10 to 20 seasons of the show, or you've never seen those and you'd like a good way to kind of get caught up to speed without having to go back and actually watch the whole thing, great resource for some OG challenge coverage. And hopefully, I like to think if you like monologues, it is just me on my episode recaps. So it's just me doing a big long monologue. But definitely, if you're looking for more challenge coverage, come stop on through Challenge Historian. Anywhere you look, you'll find me.
Alrighty, guys. Did you miss an episode of the Jake's Take with Jacob Elyachar Podcast? Well, visit our channels on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, iHeart, Podchaser, Spotify, and Spreaker. Jake's Take with Jacob Elyachar. JacobElyachar. Now, are you on social media? Because I'm on social media too. Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok. Jacob Elyachar, JacobElyachar. Want to see my other interviews, including my interview with Jenny? Well, visit jakes-take.com. Once again, jakes-take.com. Jacob, it was such a thrill to talk with you. I had a fabulous time. Please come on more often, and I cannot wait to see your coverage for the rest of the season.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, anytime you want to talk challenge, I'm your guy. Always, any day, anytime. I love talking about this stuff, and this was a great time. So thanks for having me.
Alrighty, and guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, everybody, have a great one. Goodbye.